everybody, and welcome to race day preview here live from New Hampshire Motor Speedway in Loudon. Gavin, it's Friday. Big day at the track today. 17 press conferences, which I'm told is an all-time high for a NASCAR media center. Danica Patrick, definitely the biggest one of all. Story of the day. She comes in, receives a beautiful pair of heels from Jerry Gappens. Not sure what that was all about, but what was your impression of seeing her live in person and kind of being the story?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty interesting. I mean, just given the fact that there were so many people in there, so much media, so much attention, so many cameras on her, and you know, the way she handles it is pretty impressive. I mean, I know she sees a lot of this stuff with IndyCar series and everything like that, but just how she handled it, so calm, cool, collected with everything. And the one thing that really, you know, got my attention was how it appears to be honest. It seems like her assessment of things is honesty. I'm not sure if it's honesty or if it's just maybe a cop-out in a way to kind of, just in case she doesn't do well, if maybe that's what it is. But, you know, she seemed to be honest about the fact that she's not really sure what the race car is about yet. She's been off for a while. She's a little bit uncomfortable. You could tell by her track times and her speed out there today. It was well below the average. So, but overall, I thought it was a really fun day, an interesting day, and it was pretty cool to kind of see her up close in here in New Hampshire.
Yeah, she had the second to worst time in the first practice, and that was actually minutes before she came in the media center.
Right.
And yet she had a smile on her face. She was answering every question very thoroughly, giving her best. You couldn't tell at all that she had been struggling in the car, and in fact she said the struggles weren't even bothering her.
Sure. And I think that's some of the carryover of maybe it is honesty that we're seeing from her, that she just wants time in the car. And we saw, you know, repeatedly people asked, we had 17 driver interviews today, and repeatedly the drivers were asked, what do you think of Danica? I mean, it was the token question to ask, and they all said the same thing. She just needs time in the car. It's time at the track, time in the car, because they were asking her, how are you successful here too? Because we see so many guys that struggle with this track as well, that drive full time. So, but time in the car, time here. It's as simple as that. And until she gets more time here and in the car and overall, it's going to be a struggle for her, I think.
She picked up her pace in the second practice, which has to be encouraging for that number 7 GoDaddy team. Later in the day came qualifying for the Cup Series. Juan Pablo Montoya, for the second consecutive visit to New Hampshire, puts himself on the pole. Not quite the record speed he had here in September, but pretty good nonetheless. He was the fastest in practice too. Again, Montoya looks like a car to beat.
Yeah, and you called him out on it, and I thought was a great question, was will he be able to look back at last year and maybe some unfinished business, because he was so good here last year. He led a lot of laps. He didn't just qualify and kind of fade to the back. He led a lot of laps, and he didn't finish very well. You know, he kind of lost it at the end there, and I know Mark Martin kind of took it to him at the end, and he wasn't too happy with the second. But I think there is going to be some unfinished business for him, and I think he wants to win here and get himself established, because we talked about it before. This was a track that kind of springboarded him to a solid finish for the rest of the year and got him into the chase. So although it's been a really bad season, so to speak, based on what he did last year so far, I think that maybe a good finish here tomorrow, a win, definitely get him back on track.
Bad season, but as he pointed out in the press conference, he's only 160 points back with 10 races to go. 16 points a race to make up. He can do it. It'll be interesting to see how he approaches the race on Sunday in that respect, because the answer to my question was no. He didn't feel like there was unfinished business. So he's not going to come out here gangbusters looking for a win. He spoke several times about the importance of points, and I think that might be his focus. Probably not what the race fan's looking for, but at this point in the season, that might be the smart move from Montoya.
And the move that he made last year, which got him into the chase. I mean, he's been, some of it has been the car, some of it has been him, and I think until he kind of figures out which is which and gets himself back on track, it's going to be a struggle for him to get in. So I think last year, you look at, based on what he did, ran a lot of points races, was happy with top 10s, happy with top 5s, wasn't trying to win every week. If he can do that again starting this week, he might get himself back in there.
Very interesting qualifying grid. You have second in third place Kurt Busch, in fourth place Mark Martin, and in 10th place Jimmy Johnson. In the top 15, those are the only guys that are currently in chase position to qualify that high. You have a guy like Joe Nemechek in 7th and a guy like Tony Stewart in 25th. Kind of strange, kind of will put to test the theory that this place is hard to pass at, because I don't think you're going to see guys like Nemechek and Scott Speed and Sam Hornish Jr. I don't think you're going to see those guys at the front at the end of the day. I think those chase guys are going to make it their way through the field and come up, just a matter of how long it takes.
Yeah, and then you got Kevin Harvick, the points leader. I believe he's somewhere in the mid-20s, 24th, something like that. So it'll make it exciting, though. But I mean, when the guys are all up front like that, you kind of just, everybody else just kind of fades to the back, and they're kind of lost in the shuffle for the rest of the race. This will make things pretty interesting from the get-go, because a lot of these guys, looking at last week too, with how aggressive they were, that was another question everyone was asked today. Is that aggressive nature going to continue this week? We'll see if it does, because they're going to want to move to the front quickly, and if it's at the expense of maybe somebody that got in their way last week, we'll see if that rears its head.
Nightcap tonight was the New England 125. It's the K&N Pro Series.
It changes every day, so
right. Tomorrow it might be the Camping World Series East again. But Ryan Truex, really a dominant run. Every restart just pulled away from the field, and nobody really had anything for him.
No, and Kevin Moffitt had the lead for the first half of the race anyway, at least the first third, and he looked like the dominant car. He got himself into clean air, and he was gone, and everyone else was trying to catch him. And then we saw some cautions, and then when we eventually went into pit road, that is when Truex made his move. He was able to get back out front, and on restarts, he was just impossible to catch. He got himself up 5-6 car lengths before they even came back around the track. So on that first lap, so he was absolutely the dominant car today, and he kind of just left everybody else in the dust.
Truex in a couple of weeks will make his Nationwide Series debut. The Nationwide is the big story on the track tomorrow. They qualify in the morning, they race in the afternoon. Gavin and I will be here. We'll be back to tell you all about how Danica does, how everybody else does, and whether, for the first time in 24 nationwide races here at New Hampshire, there is a repeat winner. We'll see you then.
Take care.